Welcome everyone, we're back. It's good to be back. Why is it always every episode that we go into the shadow realm? So for the audio onlys, we have about 5 seconds at the start of every episode where my webcam just decides it's not gonna work. But how you doing, boys? Warner, good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you.
Albert, how are we doing, man?
We're doing fine. I have my coffee as always. I'm ready, That's all I need.
Nice. Well, I mean, we got a lot to talk about. I mean, first things
Yeah.
first, the change in weeks. We jumped a week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. So we figured doing the podcast on the off week would be less of a strain for us. The race week is more packed, so we just figured it would be more chill to do it like this. So we're going week by week once, and then we're gonna go back to the usual bi-weekly. Yeah.
Nice. Change things up. I mean, we came off of, we'll get to in a minute, but we came off of probably one of the most exciting rounds that we've had in the season so far. I think fair to say.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
So for starters, Eclipse showed up, and he won. Well, happens. Green had a very good performance. I don't know if you guys saw. He actually was on pace with Eclipse, and I remember Eclipse saying that he actually had to push a lot to gain the distance back that he actually lost to him. So while it might have not looked like it on the cast, they were really scrapping it out, just not straight up fighting,
Yeah. Oh, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is that it's really rare that you get, and I know I was talking with Guy about this on the actual casting. Rarely do you see someone show up just halfway through season out of the blue and then just like really just smash it out, like just absolutely come in swinging. And one of the main reasons why I picked, in fact, my money was on Mars to win the race. So for anyone who did miss it, of course, you want to check out the race round 4 on the official Racing Haven Twitch, but also we'll be having things like highlights coming out in due time. And the way that I looked at it is that you've got that experience of half a season versus Eclipse, who's kind of coming out of the blue, but he really proved his worth. And it's not like it was an easy fight either, as you say.
Yeah, for sure. But to be honest, it seems like maybe it wasn't Mars's day, because he hasn't really missed a checkpoint. He had a pretty big lockup that lost him a couple seconds, but he fell into the hot lap mode very quickly, and it feels like Green and Eclipse were just better on the day. I think, yeah, Breezy missed a checkpoint, so after a really solid performance in round 3, it seems like the checkpoint miss just kind of put him out of the race. But yeah, apart from that, the race was amazing. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if Warner, if you caught it, but yeah, it's definitely something to watch. And we had Geet on the cast, which was amazing. He brought in like really insane vibes, and it felt very cozy, so to speak. It was very nice. Very nice.
I certainly had a lot of fun. The main thing I look for when we're doing casting and co-casting is not so much like having an encyclopedic knowledge. That's not really what it's about.
Mhm.
All I really look for is you have someone who has enough of an idea, knows what they're talking about on a core level, but just more importantly, they have that passion, because it's like putting art on, it's like putting art, pen to paper, canvas, etc. When you put your heart and soul into that art, when you're passionate about that art, then you can't help on the other side. You can't help but feel it. And that is something, that's why I've always loved being side by side with Guy. And you can look to Honda Fan Cup, you can look to the Odd Team Wars cast we've done together. You can tell we're both loving it. I love it. Bounce off each other really well, and the same goes for all the co-coms I've had so far. I don't want to discredit like people like Scout who came in and really put in good work. Connie as well, bringing in that good balance where we're in the commentary booth, and that's not even to talk about all the other guys who are doing the other divisions like Hand of God and Samu. I think they were a really good pairing as well. So
Oh, yeah.
it's awesome, honestly.
Yeah, and we've had Samu and Hog cast for us for, I can say it now, for quite a long time, to be honest. And they've always been reliable, and they've always they always bring in their own viewers as well. So people definitely check out RH more. And we've actually had very nice viewer numbers for D2 Heat 1 recently. We've actually, I think we had almost 100 people this time. Granted, it was a very good race. Minju drove away a little bit, which is uncharacteristic, I want to say, for Minju, because he's, or at least I know him as he has a lot of pace, but he's very inconsistent. So for him to have such a clean, such a nice race on a track that's very hard to get right consistently, I mean, props to him, you know. He definitely, that was definitely a good showing from him.
Consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, Warner, you're probably best to speak on this because like you were actively racing in RH at one point, and of course now with Team Wars and how that's been going. Because you went and joined another team, didn't you, cheeky man?
Yeah, I might have done.
Oh, did you?
Maybe.
I didn't catch that.
I'm now in nude.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it took me over 2.5 hours to pass the tryout.
Oh, that's actually not even bad. Like, some tryouts are not easy. So
No,
I don't know what the new
back to
tryout
back.
is, but yeah. Oh,
I had back-to-back blueprints of being 9 thousandths of a second away and being 10 thousandths of a second away.
bruh. Well,
But
it is
yeah,
what it is.
it is quite good. Going back to the Race Haven track though, I did about 3 days worth of practice on this track, and I could not get the hang of it.
I was actually
Really?
struggling as well, yeah.
I was in Struggle Town. I did a 27.2, and that was a random blip lap. Other than that, I was probably 27.6.
Yeah, I was stuck in high 26s, and it felt very demotivating. It's also kind of a product of, or a byproduct of me not racing very much recently, which I'm kind of missing. But then again, when I go into practice, when that actually happens, when I find the motivation, find the time, I feel like I'm very rusty, and that demotivates me even more because I kind of get mad at myself that from what was my peak at the time, kind of, you know, came back to being like a second off pace. Maybe with practice though. Maybe I'll come back for race 5, which is an amazing Skytrack by Kindle. But we'll get to that for sure.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to race 5 because race 5, it just like visually, it's such a spectacle. I mean, I'm not saying that the others aren't, but you go from something that is like, yes, looks amazing, something like ODL or something like we just had Presta Carreras, or the Albantering, etc. But you go from that, which are great but ground based, into something like Skyway, which is so different, which is so like up in the air, literally up in the air, with fully artificial terrain, fully artificial scenery. It's such a different vibe in a good way.
Yeah, it's really nice. It has the really racetrack-y feeling, whether it's, you know, the buildings around the whole track idea itself, because it is inspired by another track in a different game. But I will say though, that for people that think the track looks bland, we'll have a bit of an extension situation beyond the curbs for people that will race, to give more color, to give people a bit more space for their wheels so they don't have to go on dirt. some quality of life changes. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward. I think I'm gonna practice and see how I do. It's been a while. What about you guys? Because I know Sappy, you've been going back to racing, and Warner as well.
Warner, we'll start with you. So you're the more active racer of us two.
Well,
I've already raced the new round 5 track, and I do kind of like it.
Okay.
I must admit, it flows very well. And I was racing around it with Matt Clem, and we were just tearing some laps around it. It's just a track that just doesn't get boring because I'm sat there racing around it and I'm thinking, I could have a car on my right, I could have a car behind, and it would be really good racing right now. And it's got everything to be made for a good race.
Oh, for
that
sure.
is going to be.
Yeah, you have to say, as Green put it, a reverse Maggots and Beckett's from turn 1 to the downhill. Then you have a very nice, very good overtaking opportunity after the downhill into the hairpin. Then a little tunnel section, a little bit of a sweeping section. Then a hard braking zone. Then a chicane. So, I mean, it's everything you might need. And it is a very straightforward track. But the first section is very hard to nail to get right. So yeah, I definitely want to see how it all unfolds. Especially because he kind of woke up after we mentioned him, maybe. But Hydra registered, and he's looking to race as well. That's going to be interesting for sure. Yep.
Ooh,
Okay. I like to cut your jib. So, on the whole track thing, what I love about Skyway, what I love about Sky Tracks in general, is that they're as far as track building goes, they're very high risk, high reward, in the sense that the skills that you need to craft them, because you haven't got any baseline, it's a lot harder. I'm just going to be up and say it. It's a lot harder to create a track from scratch rather than making an interesting integration of existing terrain. But that also means that you can perfectly sculpt it for really good racing. And like Warner said, like when I recently gave it a bit of another shot, I was going to get a few more B-roll shots for the montages that go in the background of our casts. I just ended up racing. I just ended up hot lapping it because it was just so fun to drive. And like Warner was saying, you can have drivers around you, and you can tell that with the considerations that have been made, things like runoff, track width itself, how the corners actually flow and undulate, and all this and all that. It's a good track for racing, and that's all that matters. It's just a really, really good track, in my opinion. But Hydra getting involved, that's going to be a bit of a tonal shift from Ren Sport.
I mean, we'll see. Let's hope. Because that would be, comeback of the year, probably. I'm interested to see how well he'd do if he actually races. So, well, here's hoping that he does.
Hot take. I think that he might have a little bit of an initial wobble. He's not going to hit the ground swinging. I'm not doubting that once he's in his element, he's going to be absolutely untouchable. He's going to be legendary. But I think that there is going to be a little bit of an initial adjustment period, just because you're coming from, well, let's be real, a sim that isn't even out yet. Like we can't talk about things like physics model and how it feels compared to Forza because we've never tried it. The only guys that have tried it are people who went to go to like the showcase beta events and the guys competing in R1, and the R1 build is probably a lot different from the beta build they got in those showcases, so you can't even go off of that first one.
Yeah.
I wonder how different it is, because it has to have some consistency, of course, because it wouldn't get the kind of traction as a sim if you'd had wonky, inconsistent physics. Although I think we touched on it in a previous episode, there was murmurings that the physics seem a little bit off in a weird, non-quantifiable way.
I think oversteer or like the car's a bit slidey, but don't quote me on that. Anyone that's watching it knows. That's what I did here. Like cars seem a bit unstable. But to be honest, I think it was a hot take because I think he's just gonna be top pace if he actually decides to practice and race. That's just, Just comes with the craft.
Yeah, like I say, I'm not saying that you're going to have I'm not saying it's going to be uncompetitive,
Oh, yeah.
but I think there is going to be an adjustment period. Whether we'll see that in actual race performance, I don't know. I honestly doubt it because they'll be putting in that practice to get acclimatized to Forza again. But it's not just a simple one to the other.
Yeah, for sure not.
And I'm looking forward to, if nothing else, to because we got to talk about we got the new update, right? We
Yes.
got the new update. First off, another content banger in my opinion. More off-road focused this time round, which is like a bit mixed to some. I know dirt off-road is kind of like a Marmite kind of deal, but photo mode, big updates, more mods for cars, more event lab prop packs. So I think we were talking about this initially when the oval came out into the map. We looked at the joins, and I think it was Vorti who said that this was going to become a prop pack for the event lab.
Yes, that's what he said, because they seemed like they snap, and they do. We were hoping we weren't gonna have to remake our Skytracks to keep up with the new update, but it feels like except for like infield layouts or actual oval layouts, there is a big possibility, or it's not very usable for making Skytracks. It's a very wide kind of road, but it's definitely a good addition, and it's a good start. Maybe we get some actual racetrack pieces. We'll see. Yeah. And other things in the update, as you mentioned, photo mode, definitely useful for if we ever want to make driver profile pictures. We can just have them stand in front of their cars. That could be cool instead of some profile pictures that some people have on Discord. It's just comes with the platform that we're on. But so definitely that, and then. The biggest update, apart from the cars, which I think we should come back to, because the quality definitely improved, the physics update. So
Yes,
Torben himself,
physics.
yes, he spoke. I'm going to take the liberty and explain what's up. So for competitive races or for competitive racing, there are a couple issues that kind of discredit FH5 as a consistently raceable game, so to speak. So when you used to, because it's fixed. So say you made a blueprint and you set it to time of day, I don't know, evening, whatever, and clear weather. So every time you would launch the blueprint, and every time you would restart the blueprint, because launch and restart are two different kind of code blocks, so to speak, in the source code, that the temperatures would be different and the skybox would be different, because the game has a list of skyboxes for each time of day and each weather, and it picks one randomly. So that's the first issue. Practice is different from the race. Each practice blueprint can be different, etc. But then there came the issue that if you run in online, it would make it so each person could have a different skybox. So that's obviously an insane issue. And if you set the weather to wet, for example, it will also make for different conditions for every player. So that effectively made wet races impossible, and that kind of made night races impossible, because every player could have different tire temps, because it would just load the tires at different speeds for each players, whatever. Let's not go into it that much. So essentially what they did now is every time you select the time of day for the blueprint, every time the blueprint is loaded, every single time, from the list of presets, list of skyboxes, it always picks the first one on the list that the game has. So every player will always have the same skybox for that set time of day, no matter how many blueprints you make, in how many different places, it's always going to be the same skybox for the set time of day, and same for the weather. So that's one issue that was fixed. And another issue that was fixed is, when you set the time progression to rolling, right?
Yeah.
So what it used to do is there was like a deterministic phase where it rolled the weather for 30 minutes, and then after 30 minutes in multiplayer, it would desync, and every single player would have their own rolling time, so to speak. So it could start raining for some people, it could stop raining for some other people. And now how it works is for the first 30 minutes, the deterministic phase, it runs the same for everyone, and then after the 30 minutes, it stops at that point, and it just like stays like that until the end of the blueprint. So these are two insanely huge changes for the competitive scene. And I mean, what do you think? We might see some night races, some wet races. We'll see. Could be fun.
Or night race, because like more enduro stuff and things like night races were always off the table, weren't they? But I wonder how you'd adapt existing like competitive maps to be like built for night, if that makes sense, because you can't always rely on headlights.
On headlights? Oh, you mean?
Yeah, you need some sort of lighting around the track. And the
Yeah,
one
but
track,
FPS.
the one track that could be lit, which could be amazing, Skyway.
Yeah, but that tanks the FPS. The more lighting you do, the more it tanks the FPS. I think we had that in Sierra Verde in the other league, where Mark put those little lights on in some places, and it would make it literally undrivable for some people, even in the day, because the lights stay on for some reason. So yeah. But yeah, maybe if we find that the changes are actually in place, because I think Breezy and Green already tested the skyboxes and those work. Maybe we have race 6 in the evening. We'll see.
Ooh.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about the overall quality of updates lately? Because I feel like they've improved a lot.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, the last 3-4 updates have, in my opinion, hit it out the park.
Yeah.
They seem to. I'm not sure what changed, or if anything changed. But it seems like almost like a switch has been flipped somewhere in the offices and somewhere in the minds of the team behind the words. Uh, but whatever's different, it seems like they've been putting out banger after banger after banger. I mean, you've got Midnights at Horizon, you've got High Performance, you've got now the Overlanding update to Explore the Horizon, you've got pretty much like nothing but top-notch stuff and updates that we've been requesting, and all of these different like fixes and things that we genuinely have been asking for a while. I'm glad we seem to be on the turnaround now, where it's not just the focus on, I'm gonna call it like asinine stuff, or stuff that nobody really wanted per se. Of course, us speaking from the competitive aspect of things, we've got very different perception to, I call it, the more casual audience and more casual side of things. We want different things than, say, the guy who just picks it up on Game Pass and wants to dick around with every single car in existence. We've got two very different perspectives, but it seems like that they are looking to address the core pitfalls that a lot of people have been asking about. Like, for instance, here, the changes to the weather simulation, the changes to the deterministic, non-deterministic parts of the race. That doesn't just impact the competitive community. That also impacts people who want to put on things like party games, creative challenges, all sorts. it really feels like a proper 180, where we had updates that kind of were mid, like the whole new to Forza thing. That kind of lost all meaning for a while, didn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, now the cars that actually get added are either new to Forza or returning cars that are very requested or just overall liked by the community. And it also feels like we've been heard as a competitive side of the community by the devs. You can even see in the not article and patch notes that specifically those changes that I talked about just a couple minutes ago. There's a developer note, which is like a couple paragraphs that speaks about the competitive community and like competitive integrity, and speaks about working with the competitive community to fix the things that were broken. And it feels like we're kind of getting noticed and appreciated by the devs, and it definitely feels very good. And it feels like the reception was also really, really good of the expansion. You could see when they mentioned the fixes, everyone, every person in chat was someone from Teamworks or RH or another competitive community, just like saying, "Yeah, amazing, finally, wow, that's a huge change." Definitely puts a smile on your face, and I hope the devs feel appreciated for that as well, and will continue.
Yeah,
For sure.
sums it up pretty accurately.
Well,
Like, it's things that you want, and when they come, it's great. I
sure.
don't really have a that seems like an insanely simple and basic concept, but it's one that we want to hammer home. It's that these are things that we've been asking for, fixes we've been asking for quite a long time, and it's great to see that coming through. For just the long-reaching effects that it has on the whole game, and these are some issues in some cases to the core game that are now being properly addressed. And the fact that we've actually got like this developer note that is about like 3, 4, 500 words long. Like, it's a big developer note, and it properly goes into detail about what actually like what is actually going on within the game. It makes sense, and this is perfect for like us, the kind of people that really want to learn this game, to know this game at its core. Having to basically rely on guesswork doesn't help much for anyone.
Yeah, it's
So
like, did the physics change this time or not?
mm,
That type of deal.
yeah, and it's just two things stand out to me with these past few updates, and this one in particular with Torben's developer note. The one thing is that they've got their ears to the ground. They're properly listening, and that is beyond amazing. Like, it's great to see. Of course, you've got your bug fixes. Of course, you've got your quotas and the rest of it. Like, am I particularly asking for the Cupra Tavascan to be added to the game? No,
No.
but it is a cool car. It is a cool car nonetheless. I respect it, and there's probably a deal somewhere. So I respect it nonetheless.
Yeah. People like the pickups though. I don't, but I
mm.
mean, I'm not the only person playing. They're definitely cool.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we've got to keep in mind, and this goes for everyone. Is that without a doubt, everyone wants different things from the game, and when it's things like core issues, of course everyone's going to be in like proper like, full fanfare mode. Thing like the physics thing, everyone was jumping up at joy at. Of course, you're going to have cars that you do like. You're going to have cars that you don't like. People are still yelling about the Nissan Suru, but that's not going to change the fact it's not in the game yet. Core
Doesn't
point
seem
is
like it's coming.
we need to look at it and put it in perspective. And sometimes it does take people saying that, okay, maybe this update, well, it has stuff for me, but this update is not for me, if that makes sense. Like the theme is off-road, right? So naturally all the road racers and a lot of the competitive guys aren't going to take much interest to all the mods they've added for overlanding and much of the new pickups and crossovers and SUVs. But there's still stuff there that we care about, like core bug fixes and that physics stuff. So think the balance is finding something for everyone. It's an immensely difficult challenge, but they've been really nailing it these past few weeks.
There's actually one more thing to address, and that is, I don't know if you guys got that, and I hope I'm not spoiling it for anyone. It's not a movie. Donut is coming back, it seems like.
They teased it, to be fair.
Yeah.
And they
Speaking of
did say
bad
they were
updates in
going
the
to do it.
past, yeah. You know, they did say.
Kind of.
You liked it?
I was kind of liked parts of it. I
Okay.
was Marmite on the whole thing, because I remember the update being, of course, like revealed. I did wonder how they were going to handle like the branching upgrade paths and trees, and I found out immediately you can cheese that to all hell.
Oh yeah.
Like the active upgrade shop in the overworld, that was cool. I liked that. Having a test track, again, that was cool. I liked that. Shame it's never explored again
It's
outside of
teased
this
to be
one
coming back.
story.
It's
That
teased to be coming back actually. It's on
that
the screen for the next month. Be fun.
But that is one thing that I disliked about previous updates. And it's slightly alleviated now, even though we kind of have a little bit of it in the case of the high performance update. Of course, we had the oval being put in, but that oval's not permanent. I would have liked to see it be permanent in somewhere like the farmlands, and that just be a permanent fixture. That would have been really cool, in my opinion. But the whole evolving world thing, I get it to an extent. What I really didn't like, and I want to hear your guys' opinions on this, is the fact that they will try out ideas and then never fully commit to them or not make them a bigger part of the actual game. Like you have a good idea, and then it's just confined to this one specific scenario and never used again.
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe with the amount of, or like with the improvement of quality that we got, maybe this update, this return of Donut actually is good, because I think even the Donut boys, the Donut Media, the actual IRL people, they spoke out about the update being a bit lackluster, if I'm not mistaken. And this being a 2-part update might mean that they will improve on their mistakes, which is the hope. Yeah, we'll see. Definitely.
Yeah. We will see. I do remember that they did have a little bit of a problem with how much actually made it to the end of the actual update. Because don't quote me on this, I think that they said that the team came in, of course, they did the mocap for the cutscenes, stuff like that. They scanned pretty much all of the cars, like including things like Hilo, etc. But that just never made it to the game. I think this is where we're going to see that, but it also makes me question why it wasn't in the OG update, because if you had it all there, I don't know.
Maybe they ran out of time.
Maybe.
Somehow.
Actually, with some of the tech that they use to do these sort of captures, you're talking tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of complex laser scanning equipment and a lot of devs behind it. I'm not going to presume. I don't want to presume because it's not fair, and I don't want to talk nonsense when I'm not in that industry. I'm not in the offices. I don't know how it works. But it does seem a little bit backwards to me. Maybe you're right, they were on a crunch timeline, but they surely knew that shipping out the story without these kind of icons getting involved. So I know you had James with his sort of Euro domestic market, like he had his golf. But to ship it without those icons, like the icons of the team, the franchise, that is, I'm surely that was a misstep they may have seen coming.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I guess that's. I mean, the only thing we can do is wait and see what actually comes out of it. But yeah, I don't know actually what I mean, that's only speculation. But after some of the devs leaving the team to create, I think, their own studio, right?
Yeah,
It seems like
Maverick.
Maverick.
Maverick Games. That was a
It's
whole thing.
Yeah, what's that? Are they still making like racing games, or what's that about? Do you know?
I
I'm actually
don't
gonna check.
I don't know. I don't really think we know anything about the studio. All
Mhm.
that we really know is that they splintered off to form their own studio and they're focused on AAA experiences. We don't really have anything else to go off of, like no hints of the type of IP or what IP they're developing or if they're going to get existing stuff or I really don't know. I will say it's probably unlikely, and I remember investigating this initially when I was going to do a content piece on it, but that fell through due to timings. Most of the losses seem to be on the Fable side of PGG. So you, of course, had the team that was working on Horizon, and then you had the team that was working on the new Fable game. Uh, Purely through back tracing of like job listings, because of course you need to re-recruit for this mass exodus, right?
Yeah.
Most of the job descriptions and job profiles that were open were explicitly stated to be for Fable. If that is, I'm not saying correlation implies causation, but there's reasonable evidence there to suggest that the football they either needed more people for Fable on the team, or that most of the footfall heading over to Maverick was Fable.
Yeah, for sure. And that also seems like uh them leaving. It's either a case of them kind of being in a disagreement, and then after the people leaving, the team just kind of doing what they wanted to do without them, or maybe they figured, hey, the devs are leaving, time to get to work. Nevertheless, whatever the reason is, we've been getting again amazing updates, and well, hope it keeps going. But yeah, I don't know about the Fable, or I know that they've been designated to work on that more, but I don't really know more, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, of course we're not like flies on the wall. We don't really know. I think what it is safe to say is that you had on the Horizon side a major refocus in terms of the content that they're putting out on a month-to-month basis. So it could have gone one or two ways, or one or three ways, or however many which. It could have gone the direction of okay, we've got like this amount of staff leaving. Now we have a bit of a power vacuum, but we also have de-restriction on what we can do. Maybe like Mike and the team that did leave were pushing a less favorable direction for the updates. Also could be the complete opposite side of the coin. They could have left voluntarily after facing pressure, and then the execs turn around and did a 180 and said, oh shoot, this looks bad for us, we need to get our act together to prove that people can still have faith in our franchises. We don't know, that it could go any manner of ways, regardless of how the turnarounds happened, the turnaround that we've seen is very positive for Forza, and it does give me a good amount of hope for what comes next.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to predict anything right now, but there is one thing that is safe, and that is Forza Motorsport, because I think those are Playground devs, right? That left the studio, so we're fine on that front. And speaking of game development, I know you guys, you don't play the game series, but Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, we have some news, and I don't know if you know how the game works in terms of the player houses and
Like Habbo
car
Hotel?
collection. Yeah, there's gonna be the player houses are not gonna be in the main game from launch, and
They're not.
I have no idea what the devs are smoking. But
Oh,
unless they have like a secret master plan, like that, this seems like like such a terrible decision. I mean, I'm still gonna play the game and try it, but holy, that seems like the community is very dissatisfied. Yeah, it's gonna be like for people asking, it's gonna be like a hotel system that you can stay in, and that's basically it.
A
What
hotel
is
system.
that?
Yeah.
So counter to what TDU is. Like what
I know, right?
yeah, I genuinely don't have words. That's the thing. Because you've got almost like pillars, cornerstones that a game franchise is built upon. So for like Test Drive, like it's got its pillars, player houses, and like actually having the experience of you being like an actual character who's going out buying houses, getting nice stuff, turning it into more of like an MMO kind of experience. That is Test Drive. In the same way that I'm kind of worried about the Crew Motorfest, because one of its cornerstones is that massive map. And then you have, of course, it going to Hawaii, and then what we've seen from the trailers, it looks like a kind of Horizon style map rather than the whole scale of America thing. I don't get what it is with most like franchises now, but they seem to be like cashing in, almost like throwing in their identity. They seem to be throwing away their identity a little bit, for trying to chase just whatever the current trend is. In this case, the trend seems to be early access is apparently your best friend and free tester.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know what to think about that. We'll see. Actually, are there any news about the Crew? Because I haven't seen anything anywhere. Whereas TDU at least gives those like cute little community notes, like what we've been doing.
To give them a
yeah.
bit of a mulligan here, I know that they've been open about the fact that they have like an internal beta program, and that I think, according to a couple Twitter posts, is like ending the final thing or like
Yeah.
nearing the final thing. But they've been very tight-lipped otherwise. And one thing is that if we haven't seen anything, it's safe to assume that anyone who has even seen a minute second of gameplay footage is under the strictest of NDAs. Because they don't want people misconstruing their content. Of course, people are going to try and leak it out, but that gets smited down very, very quickly.
Sure.
So we're not going to see anything new until that beta phase wraps up, until they're ready to show more.
Do you think FH5 is getting some competition, or do you think it's going to be like a bit of a different genre of games? Because I feel like we look at FH5 from the competitive perspective, but it seems like from the point of view of a regular player, FH5 and say Test Drive, or even the Crew, they seem like very similar games. And I actually wonder, because I don't think Need for Speed was much of a competitor. These are completely different franchises.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think it's gonna light a fire again under the devs' rear ends? You know?
That's a good question.
Especially with FM8 coming around, so FH5 will get a bit less maybe attention. Actually, don't know how that's gonna work.
I think with Forza Horizon 5, it's gone such a way. I see Forza Horizon 5, Test Drive, and the Crew sort of going the same way as like Fortnite, Warzone, and something else, where they've done a big map. They've all got the same sort of ideas, but they're all slightly different, and it's just whatever the user prefers. Because let's be honest, they've all sort of got the same. You do a race, you buy the houses, you do more races, you would then unlock more races, you unlock more parts, and things like that. They've all got that progression. But I think it's the end game where Forza in the end game is you get into the competitive scene and then you start racing against the real players. They all sort of have that, but it's not as big as what Forza has, because Forza is more of a competitive game, I feel.
Maybe not Horizon, but definitely more like an arcadey, free spirit feeling, so to speak. Because Test Drive Unlimited has always been this game about collecting cars, cruising, driving them, and not so much about racing. You obviously do races to get the money, but you have houses, you collect your cars, you display them. That's always been the most important part. Whereas in FH5, the money is kind of thrown at you, and you're supposed to do whatever you want with the cars that you get, which is an amazing prospect to, I would say, especially the younger players, the younger player base, the people that just wanna, go in, have a bit of fun, and then leave. Because Test Drive Unlimited kind of promotes, having a wheel, maybe, enjoying some good music, and kind of just driving around. There's not that much to do. It feels more like a car enthusiast game. It's someone, I'm gonna borrow this from chat. This is kind of a lifestyle game. You want this IRL. You want this, but you don't have it, so you do it in game.
Yeah, I think that we've got two fronts that I think lots, and this is just like the games industry in general, struggling. We're seeing for one, we're seeing a bit of a convergence in how everyone suddenly wants to do the same thing. So suddenly the Crew Motorfest is looking like very Forza Horizon-y. Suddenly you've got like Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown throwing in a bit of its identity and trying to appeal to, I guess, like less of the lifestyle and again more Horizon-y. I think that what you need to do is, although they faltered on the post-launch support, you need to do something like what Need for Speed Unbound did. You commit to an identity, you commit to your own space, and you nail it. Like, Unbound had its problems, sure. And it didn't get the post-launch support in the same way that Heat didn't get the post-launch support, except the studio actually survived this time around. But the key thing is that they went for something. They went for something unique. Like they really honed in the art style. And I like the whole tags thing. I like the whole cell shaded cartoon style graphics. You want it. You really want it, and I think having that system for that game works. And if they have more unique stuff like that across the board, then that would be great. The other thing is barriers to entry. So you're seeing a lot of games kind of want to make it as easy as possible to everyone. You don't want anyone feeling like they can't experience something, which creates kind of like a false dynamic where there's no ceiling, but simultaneously you have to keep coming on. You've got, on one hand, you've got enough credits to bankrupt a small country, and then on the other hand, you have to complete said arbitrary objectives on the playlist to get this car or it never comes up again, and you have to pray that the auction house is not selling it for exorbitant prices if you ever miss out on that 1 week. You're on holiday, say goodbye to that trainer, say goodbye to that mission R. You got this weird double dynamic, and some games you can balance it out, make it work, but other games you really don't. What I think did really well is, do you remember near the end of Horizon 4's life cycle?
Well,
With
Yeah,
I'm out. I have no idea.
sorry, Album.
I
Sorry,
do.
but
I
You
do.
mean the backstage pass? Because I know about
yes,
that one.
yes, the
Yes.
backstage passes. Those were great.
Yeah.
Those were great, and yes, they were kind of like a small signal, like a small flag of, hey, we're kind of reaching the end of things, guys. It's been a good run, but it was that opportunity for people to like cash in and get what they missed out on.
Was it just buying the cars that you missed for real money, or how does that work? Or how did that
Effectively,
work?
you went to the backstage, you voted for one
Yeah.
of two cars to be added to backstage, um, and then you were able to grab the car by changing passes, like exchanging passes. So instead of like the 70% completion reward being an expensive but accessible car, it'll be the backstage pass. You take the
Yeah.
backstage pass to backstage, and you get one of these exclusive cars that you maybe not gotten before. Um, except like it had a limit. I think it was like one per account for backstage pass cash-ins, or if you already had it in your account. Although that one I can't verify. If you already had that car in your account, I think you couldn't get it again, but I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
don't know.
It was a very good way of picking up cars you sort of missed, and especially for me when I was late to Forza Horizon 4. I think I joined in its last year. Those passes saved me a lot of the time. I was able to get cars that I wasn't able to find on the market.
Mm. I remember the backstage pass basically saved me because I'm so frustrated because this was right about the time that work was getting really difficult for me. I was going through a really difficult time, so I never committed to finishing this video idea. But I ended up coming up with the equivalent of like finishing your Forza Pokédex. Um, and things like the backstage pass and reruns of the series playlists. That was my godsend. That was my lifeline. It's a shame that that video never came out because I had so much fun and I really loved that system.
Yeah, that's actually I think that interests me a lot about the new releases, which is how the new games, especially Test Drive, how they handle the kind of FOMO mechanics slash updates slash adding new cars to the game. Because as you mentioned in Forza, it's if you miss 1 week, you miss a car, you can try to snipe it, but it won't be available until I don't know, until the interest drops and you can actually buy it from the auction house. But for a game like The Crew, for a game like Test Drive, or whatever is coming out, I'm very interested in how they kind of handle the new content, how that actually works, because it's a very difficult task to keep people playing a racing game if it's not a racing game or a car. To keep people playing a car game, because in essence those games are, you get in, you drive around, and you do whatever you want. And especially Test Drive, it's a game where you just go and cruise and probably meet some people because it's supposed to be like a car MMO or whatever. I'm very interested to see how they handle it, and if Forza devs maybe, look there and be like, oh, can I copy your homework? Yeah, but don't change it. Change it a little bit, We'll see.
I would say, looking at the other like the other games, one thing that I am very thankful for, the Horizon 5 actually stopped, is like the special variants, we'll call it, of cars. I know that they did the pre-order cars, which were a
The welcome
pain.
pack?
The welcome pack you've still got. That is kind of like the only case. Oh, but saying that, they did the OPI, didn't they? They did the OPI for GT.
They did. And they did the Zonda, the Oreo Zonda. And I mean, I don't think people care as much about the clothing, the Doritos clothing or whatever that they
Yeah,
added.
if it's like side stuff, I can
Yeah, that's
excuse
fine.
it.
That's
What
fine.
I don't like is specific like locked variants of cars.
Yeah,
And
32
in fact, I'm
coupe,
gonna
Ford coupe.
yeah, in
that one.
fact, I'm gonna go back on this a little bit. I'm going to retract my point upon further consideration because you had the OPI GT, you had the Oreo Zonda, and then you have the 32 Coupe, which was tied to buying a controller for £90.
Yeah, that's insane.
I'm not paying £90
Yeah, and Steam players
for a
can't.
car.
I'm gonna borrow again from chat, and Steam players apparently can't get the Ford and the GT OPI. So
Wait, they actually can't get it?
I didn't know that, but I guess they can't. That's
Jeez.
actually such a bummer.
Mm.
Especially
Yeah.
because I think the Zonda Oreo is like very slightly better than the standard Zonda C, which I don't think many people care about. They would care if it was a meta car. It's a
Yeah,
very
that's a
dangerous
fair
game to
point.
play.
The
Yeah.
and I think kind of what I meant to start this point with, and what probably would have been a better introduction, is that the not so much like the exclusive cars like the pre-order cars, but they seem to be making sure that those exclusive cars aren't busted, because the pre-order cars were straight up broken. Like some of them, you put them in the right conditions in like S1A, they were beyond busted.
Where
Like
did the
untouchable. Like the
where was the
McLaren, I
Monaco?
remember it was the McLaren 720S pre-order car. That was ridiculously good, and it was actually unfair. It was actually unfair. Like I ended up deleting it from my inventory. I was that mad about it.
Oh my god.
Like,
What about the Shelby
yeah.
Monaco? Was it like a car pass car or whatever?
What, the
'Cause-
King Cobra?
Yeah, that one.
Um,
Because it's
I don't
like
remember
it
if
was
that
like Meta
was
S1, S2.
was that car. Yeah, I think it was. It was either Car Pass or it was like no, it wasn't Car Pass. It was one of the car packs. Something Jackson.
Okay. Barrett Jackson pack.
Barrett Jackson.
I'm
Bingo.
gonna yeah, I'm gonna support myself with chat again. They're being very good today. But yeah, I mean I would say that seems crazy to me that they did that in FH4. But then you can see the Hot Wheels expansion with the amazing Bat to the Blade, BT62, and so on and so forth, which rendered the what's it called? The
CCGT.
CCGT, yeah, completely worthless in terms of getting world records, of course.
Well, I
but
think
yeah.
the thing to consider with that one is the King Cobra, and then things like Bad to the Blade, BT62 is apples to oranges. Because the King Cobra was extremely powerful, but only in this one specific scenario, like drag races. The Vicon,
No.
no, I mean,
No, it was meta for S1 and S2. It was like the most handling power build in the game. At least that's what my GRT friends told me. So if that's wrong, go to them, go to the server and tell them they're
yeah.
stupid.
I mean, I am. I mean, we can have a whole episode if we wanted to talk about meta power builds and stuff like that. Um, I think its power build potential was very strong.
It's like what 1,000 horsepower, 800 kilograms, full aero,
Yeah.
or whatever.
I
It was
genuinely don't
ridiculous.
remember it being.
Broken.
I didn't realize that it was that meta in the higher classes, but I think more of the apples to oranges part is that with the Bad to the Blade and BT62, there's two things to consider. It's like one that they are like they're part of the expansion, and expansion versus car pack. It's kind of a different dynamic because you need a Halo car. Car packs, you can just sort of throw whatever cars you want in there. And this is the same way that they approach game design with things like sort of character driven games. Things like if you're playing Overwatch, what they do is they deliberately make the new characters they introduce busted OP for like a week. And in order to get people playing, in order to get people on it, and then
That's
dial
many
it back
games,
down. A lot of games do this. The only difference, the only issue with H5 is, in the case of the Bad to the Blade and the BT62, is that you can't nerf cars. You can't just come out of the blue and nerf cars. You can tweak physics models, but you cannot just straight up nerf a single car. That is not how it works. And
Yeah, and
also
then
would
keep
be
leaderboards the same.
disingenuous. That would be disingenuous too. You got like this expansion, and people might buy it, and people do buy it on the premise of like, oh, they got this really cool car. Like the Venom F5 actually is specially designed for the Hot Wheels expansion to be the only car that can pass the arbitrary speed limit.
Yeah.
It's things like that.
Yeah,
It would be a bit of a bait and switch, and also inconsistent.
Yeah, you could obviously argue that in a game like Horizon, the meta or the power level of cars is not the main focus. But if they lock some cars behind a paywall in motorsport, that could be a bigger problem, especially if those are like GT cars or LMP cars, the cars that are used in competitions. That could be a problem, and I think they need to be very careful about what they do about that.
Yeah.
Just to not fall into the the broken car behind a paywall thing again.
The pay to win.
Yeah, because you do worry about pay to win at that point, and like I still maintain that the King Cobra isn't pay to win in the same way that the Bad to the Blade and the BT62 are pay to win, purely because the situational aspect of it comes into play. Like power builds, absolutely busted, but technical tracks, screwed. You put the BT62 or the Bad to the Blade, short of like top speed tracks, those things will dominate pretty much everywhere. Um, but yeah, if it's safe to say they're going to introduce something like the playlist or the seasonal system where you get cars coming in on a regular basis. Um, I will say that they better make sure that the core categories like GT3 prototypes, like touring cars, even all the rest of it, that is core and that is accessible because otherwise, the competitive guys like Tora, MEA, DOR, those guys will eat you for breakfast.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Tora, I think the last endurance event, which don't kill me, I don't remember what it was. There were like more than a couple DCs during every stint, and seems like FM7 has been struggling more and more with servers lately because that's always been the issue. Why I'm talking about it is we were talking about driver swaps, possibly like live stewarding, team comms, stuff like that. But if the servers are bad, I mean the community will not be happy. I don't know if you guys caught that, but many teams were speaking out about disconnects over and over and over again for no particular reason, really. I don't know.
Yeah, the Tour, it was TEC, the Endurance Championship.
Yeah.
So they had 8 hours of, I think it was Watkins Glen. That was the thing. I mean, first off, Rise, ESV, Apollo.
Apollo.
Great job because I think Apollo won a category and Rise won a category.
Yeah, Apollo 1X, I think. Really
Yeah.
good for performance from them.
So awesome stuff. They really pulled it out the hat, like all of these teams. And I think the other thing to remember is that this is fundamentally a dead game. I know that sounds crude. No,
Well.
hear me out. This sounds crude. This sounds super crude and super mean. But at its like, if you want the official definition, the game is end of life. The game is not dead in terms of activity. No, that is not what I mean at all. But what I do mean is that we can't expect a perfect experience from a game that has been end of life for quite a while now. And I understand to an extent. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's acceptable because the game is still active and the game still has a community that it should be catering for. But I'm not saying either that we should expect a bulletproof experience, especially given some of those servers that are powering FM7 and keeping it up are likely going to be gradually like reduced in favor of more FM 2023 space. But yeah, the disconnect situation was just like that is not acceptable on any level, regardless.
Yeah,
there was
it's not the first time either.
I want to say 15 disconnects in one of the lobbies at one point.
Oh my god.
Is that just in
I
one
may be
heat?
getting my numbers wrong.
Yeah, I think in the top split. I think in the top split.
There was
So
15.
that's really big. And to be honest, we don't hear about it now. We don't feel like it's that big of an issue. I mean, it is that big of an issue, but it doesn't get as much traction now. But if FM8 comes around and the game is actually a viable esport, which we are assuming it will be, let's just assume that. We could have another, R Factor 2 Le Mans situation where the top drivers just speak out about how broken the game is. Because I don't know if you guys, for anyone that doesn't know, or if you guys don't know, a while back now, a couple months back, the developers of R Factor 2 bought the rights to Le Mans Virtual, and during the event, I think the IP leaked and they got DDoSed a couple times, which resulted in people like in teams like Redline with Max Verstappen.
Server stability, absolutely.
Yeah.
They just need consistent, stable servers, and that is already, I think, 90% of online problems resolved. Because a lot of the problems with FM7 right now can be boiled down to either random disconnects, inconsistent netcode and collisions, or you occasionally have the moment where the game completely fritzes out and lobbies like straight up break. But those are much fewer and far between.
Oh my god! Imagine dedicated servers to the new game.
Oh,
That would be
that would be
amazing.
lovely.
Well, imagine, and this is like crazy talk, but imagine they pulled almost like a source and you had like a proper community server browser again.
Okay. Wait, was that a thing?
Well, do you remember like it isn't the same grade, but all the way back in like Horizon 1, Motorsport 4, you had a proper lobby browser, and like if you wanted to go into say a car football game, you can see like there's 6-7 lobbies going on.
Yeah.
And some of them can be public, you could make your own private ones. That was proper good times. And with that in mind, I think it would be. I know that Horizon 2 had this whole big messaging about the seamless experience, no more lobbies. Lobbies, in some cases, are a good thing. They
sure,
are,
yeah.
in a lot of cases, a good thing. So having that kind of browser, especially if you want to extend the game's lifetime, looking at all sorts of games, heck, Assetto Corsa, looking at further around the community, like until very recently, a lot of Call of Duties with their community clients and community browsers. And I have a lot of stuff to say about that, so you better shut me up.
Don't worry about it. We'll not shut you up yet. But yeah, it's especially even if it's if in a form of a subscription or a one-time payment for a server, it would be a amazing, powerful tool for event organizers like RH. Like imagine being able to set up an event a week in advance when the race week starts, and people being able to go on the server, get some practice runs in, then have a proper countdown to qualifying, whatever, to the race, yada yada, being split into heats. I feel like that would be the most powerful tool they could give us, apart from results in data out, which might happen, might not
don't
happen.
take away my data out wizardry, man. Don't take away my data wizardry.
It could. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that we could get in the new game, or improved in FH5, right? Results in data out, because every community that uses bots to register, including RH, obviously, every community that like FIDA that does result backdating right now, and I think they're close to being done. They all would have so much use out of it. And I mean, I don't know if it's not a thing, obviously, but a man could dream, man could dream. Well, I'll mention this every single episode, and I'm sorry, but yeah, this is your annual data out mention from Albant. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, data out's coming clutch. I will say, and I am gonna get a little bit of ego on this one, I think, but I'm really happy that this kind of sort of microcosm has kind of built. Of course, you had the original release of Horizon Plus, and then since then you've had so many people design their own dashes, really get into that kind of thing, and that's super cool to see. Just how like one thing can spur on a whole plethora of like different designs and creativity in the same way that livery design and like map design, although not to the same scale. You have like you have like an original point and the start of an idea, and it's evolved into something much more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's again the community taking things, taking matters into their own hands, and I mean, without the issues that the game has, there's a high chance that the community wouldn't be that strong, you know, and that like knowledgeable about the game, because you need that knowledge to know what you can do and what you can't do, and how to kind of you know,
It's that
go around the
weird.
issues.
It's that weird like double like dichotomy in a weird way, because like although we built so much more around it, Horizon Plus wouldn't exist if the game had split times.
Yeah.
If the game, because that was the original reason I tried to create it.
Yeah.
It was to restore split times, and in the end,
you succeeded.
We
kind of.
Well, yes, but actually no.
Yesn't.
While we didn't get raw split times in a sense, that kind of opened the door to say, right, split times not possible in the traditional way. Like, and also cheeky note for the Rally Adventure expansion. I notice you just update the lap timer on lap 0. You don't do split times. Cheeky.
What? Wait.
Ooh.
Okay, you could
Ooh.
rewind. Play back.
I did some investigating
Okay.
in order to see if there was any like extra flags or extra data that we could use as part of like the quest for split times. What the game actually does for the split gates when you play Horizon Rally, and this was super fun to investigate, is that the game technically records almost like a lapped race.
No.
So the splits are functionally, although it doesn't output 100% consistently in data, functionally, the actual rally stage is the equivalent of doing like a 3 or 4 lap race.
No, they didn't.
All that changes is that you're not updating the lap counter. You're still technically on lap 0, but your lap time updates.
That's so bad. I'm sorry, but that's so bad. Oh, well,
I'm not happy about it, but I will give credit where it's due. It's a pretty ingenious solution that isn't split times. I do feel like it was a little bit backwards, because with splits, I know splits and split times in terms of a race are different things, but you could have very easily just created, like you could have just created split times, reintroduced split times, and then augmented it slightly, rather than doing a roundabout system in order to address that problem.
But then it's a thing that's already in the game, and they kind of repurposed it instead of making something from
that's why I'm
scratch,
saying I'll give it credit where it's due, because they found a creative solution to this problem, but that still doesn't change the fact that it's something that's absent that should be back. We're hoping back, but not to be. But back to the main point is that with split times being in the game, Horizon Plus wouldn't exist. Now, with us unable to actually put split times back in, that's when it opened the door to a lot more creative stuff, and that's where we came up with things like the Delta and going for a more tuner telemetry style route than just being like an info panel. That's where that all spurred from. So it's almost symbiotic relationship that the community has with the game. In the game has shortfalls that inspires the best from the community, but the community simultaneously shouldn't have to be doing so well because the game should be addressing those shortfalls in the first place. It's weird to explain, but you kind of see where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's I mean, maybe that was purposely a missing feature to get us to you know, boost the community's ingenuity. But yeah,
if they
for sure.
took out split times for that level, for that level of
no way.
outcome, I'm straight up calling, going onto a panel that the dev team are on, and asking them which one played 5-dimensional chess with interdimensional
Okay,
time
no,
travel.
no, no, no. I'm obviously shitposting, but you know, like you get the idea. You get the idea. But I mean, we're gonna have it for FM8. If we don't, I swear to God, if we don't have split times for FM8. But anyway, let's assume we will. I wonder if Horizon Plus or SimHub will get much use. As in, like, how much useful will it be? Because FM8, FM7 has replays, and in those replays you can see telemetry, and split times obviously do exist, and there's the differences between players in races, in feet or whatever, or in, you know what I mean, in distance. Oh yeah, English, thank you. In distance and in seconds. So I really do hope that you guys find a way to continue the development of SimHub, of Horizon Plus, or it's going to be
Luckily,
Motorsport Plus, I guess.
luckily, one thing that I've noticed is that it's mostly interchangeable. So, for instance, of course, H Plus was built for Horizon 5, but I tested it on Horizon 4, and it works about 90%
Kinda,
of the time. There's just a couple of edge cases before you can call it a proper like cross-gen compatible. Like, so for instance, like I'm not happy to call it and say it's compatible with Horizon 4 until I know for a fact that every single thing works perfectly as intended on Horizon 4. And the same goes to a degree, although to a lesser extent, with Motorsport 7, because Motorsport 7 had that data export as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
And that saw less success. I had some issues with consistency in getting it working, but it did show output. And I feel like it's going to be likely the same when it comes to the new Motorsport, in that data out will be there, because of course it has to be by this point. People built rigs around this kind of stuff and custom inputs, and not to mention the kind of micro like the micro community of content creators like TikTokers who will do drag races with a custom rev limiters and dashes. That's kind of a thing that blew up on social media for a while. But I feel like barring some maybe minor tweaks to how it's outputting, I do hope that we get a lot more data out, but even the current data we have now, with some additions where the split times will hopefully be baked in, like FM7 was, I'm hoping that we get a little bit more that way that can still work with stuff. I want to be in the position where SimHub isn't required, because the less that SimHub is required for data and things like that, the better the job the devs are doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
I actually wanted to. This is a bit off topic, but kind of came to me when we started talking about FM7 and FM8. I don't know if you guys if you guys saw in the what was it called, accessibility video update. They showed that you can restart a run, and it like starts from the last corner, like in sim games. I don't know if that's gonna be in the game, if if my eyes, you know, deceived me. But it seems like that's going towards the more sim-like experience, and I wonder if that's maybe a reason to maybe remove rewind. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing that I noticed that I don't think many people did, or maybe they did. It's just a perceptive community. I don't know. It seems like a nice addition. There's not much to talk about it here, but you know, I figured. Also, I think we lagged for a bit. We're back.
Nope.
We're back. Okay.
I mean, can we just say though, on the whole, like before we touch upon things like that restart run, can we just appreciate like the amount of work they're putting into accessibility? Like you can play the game blind, and then for us, obviously, like we're thinking that like how can you play the game blind? That's like one of the core tenets of it. But the fact that they're putting so much work into accessibility and having the game truly be playable for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's amazing. I think that's more of what we need to see across the board.
Yeah,
Definitely.
the only thing that kind of, I feel like the accessibility update wasn't very positively received. But I hope the devs don't attribute it to just people being negatively, just being negative towards the whole concept of accessibility, because it's not about them. But I think it was more like we weren't getting many updates about the game's development, and then the most amount of updates, the most amount of information that we get about the game in, I think, months maybe, we get in that video. So just a little thought to maybe explain why people were upset, although I'm not in everyone's head. But that was my reason to be a little bit disappointed. But yeah, I hope we get more. I hope we get more.
Last thing we ever want the message to be is that like the people complaining because of inclusion. No, far from it. In fact, the opposite. Everyone loves the efforts that are being put into inclusion, making sure everyone can play the game. As you said perfectly there, the reason I think that they might have got negativity for it is because they want to actually know about the game that is accessible to them. And that is something that has been lacking. We got more of representative footage of the game from, like, by proxy of this trailer, like of this accessibility showcase, than we did a genuine, just straight up gameplay showcase properly of what it looks like, of what's representative of a gameplay experience. Like, you can infer stuff, like you said, with the restart the run, whether that means from the last corner or whether that means just like starting with a rolling start or something on a completely different run to the start line.
Yeah, I think rolling start from like the last corner, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to, of course, wait and see. But you can infer stuff, and that is kind of the issue. We're inferring stuff. We're not being told anything. I'm hoping, because we got the game showcase, and I know we mentioned this when we had Mars on the other episode.
The Xbox showcase, right?
We got the showcase, and we're pretty much guaranteed to get one, more info, and two, a release date, because we're in that season where people are starting to quote unquote leak the release date, and
Q4 was it leaked?
When
or
you
rumored?
get rumored, leaked, it's all the same.
Yeah.
What we see with that is that usually around this time, that this is also the time where we get a hard confirmation of the release date, because people simultaneously, from the side of the players, we've been waiting long enough for more concrete info. And on the side of the devs, they want to get ahead of misinformation. They don't want people to run a headcanon of, say, it's coming in September, when really they are going to announce later on that it's November, when people have already established this idea. They need to get ahead of it. That's why I'm pretty much confident that we are going to finally get a release date on that showcase.
Yeah, I really hope we do, because RH is soon going into off season, and we've been planning the off season for a while now, and actually being able to know if we are gonna be putting out another season, if we're gonna do another thing, maybe. Like, it's very difficult to plan for something that you don't know how much it's gonna last. So I do hope we get some more information. To do some league band action here. We're basically planning some one-off events, but the one-off events are gonna accompany a running championship that's gonna be still bi-weekly, which I am not gonna leak, but it's gonna be it's gonna be like a running championships type of thing. Yeah. I'm gonna leak. It's gonna be like a running championship type of thing, and then single events in between. You're gonna see. We have a lot of things planned.
You'll see. We are
it's
cooking.
It's gonna be amazing. We're cooking. We are cooking. I wanted to leak that from the start of the stream, I even got permission from my fellow admins. So here you go. That's the leak.
Just
That's what
kind of
you've
like
been waiting
ending
for.
thoughts, though. This is the only time I'm going to say this. I think if we want to talk about motorsport and we want to talk about getting the info out there, take a leaf out of Ubisoft's book with Motorfest. In terms of game content, have it under NDA, that's fine. But to get people to actually play the game, try it out, of course understand that it's in a beta, and give their honest feedback, make that can be good for PR, because you say like, hey, we're listening to everyone. You can have like maybe like certain limits and bounds on that NDA, so you can maybe talk about people having a good or bad experience, but of course no specifics about the game. You can really pit the best of both worlds, and I'm trying to put on both my corporate hat and us as the players hat when I say that things like public betas and test flights not only are a good two-way street to know that you're on the right track, but they're also a really good way to actually like gauge, like get proper interest, get good insight, and garner a lot of confidence. Because to say that, yeah, we're not fully ready yet, but we still want people to try it, we still want to make sure that we've got this absolutely nailed down, that speaks to your confidence in a product. The same way that like you go to a supermarket and pre-COVID, they used to let you try stuff. Like you had little samples, right?
Yeah, they did.
That speaks to their confidence. It's like, hey, this cheese is absolutely banging. Try it right now. I bet you will buy it.
And then you buy it. You hear that? Clip it and ship it to Turn 10. There we go. That's the advice. That's what we need.
Yep, clip it, ship it, but please don't unzip it. All right, on for it, folks. Oh, this is fun. I do question sometimes why we don't do this weekly, because this is just the way too much
this
fun.
has been fun. But time, time constraints. We would run out of things to say.
No, we won't. We won't. We haven't even touched on Team Wars and Street Wars. What do you mean? We got nothing to say.
We forgore school emote. Okay, let's just shut me up.
Yeah, it's been brilliant fun. Of course, make sure you check us out on, say, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Of course, if you're here in the live chat on Twitch, great to have you here. Awesome stuff that we get to do this. And of course, check out our other content as well. We got our main casts, the main racing on Twitch every other Sunday. We're coming into round 5 in a week and a bit's time. And we've also got content on things like YouTube, Instagram, the like. You don't want to miss it. There's plenty going on, and we're coming to the second half of the season on Racing Haven, at least. So you're gonna want to stick around. But boys, same time in 2 weeks or 1?
Same time, 2 weeks. Yes. This
time
we said it. We said it correctly. There we go. We learned. It took only 5 episodes. There we go.
Only 5.
Okay, only 5 episodes.
Time flies, actually. 5 episodes.
There you go. Same time 2 weeks?
Same time 2 weeks.
Same time 2 weeks.
Take care, folks. See you later.
See you in a bit, guys.